Hi everyone, welcome to the new wave of witches. This is the first meeting of 2026, and tonight we are going to be going over the super full moon in Cancer. So that is happening right now as we speak, and if you are here to learn astrology, I welcome you. Um, my name is Kenzie Dolan, and I'm a certified professional astrologer, and I've been studying astrology professionally for 6 years now and have been servicing people for 6 years now as well. And it's turned into my profession, and I really, really do value the work, and I'm happy to be here with you all to kind of pass on some of that wisdom that I've gained from some of my most trusted teachers through the years. So, yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. How this will work is that it will be the first 30 minutes will be me unpacking the chart. The last 30 minutes will be any astrology questions that you want to talk about outside of just, the current chart that we're looking at. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Um, a little bit more about myself. So, prior to becoming a Western astrologer, I was fascinated with Chinese astrology pretty early on in life. I would say about 10 years old is when I started to get interested in that, and it was really just through a Chinese restaurant in my hometown of St. Louis where my family and I would go every now and then, and I really found it fascinating to learn about my Chinese astrology sign and my family members, my parents and my siblings. It helped me kind of understand like where I fell in this family of two parents and three siblings, and it started to help me make sense of things. And then later on in life, I went to school, and when I got to college, I started to do a human development and family studies minor, and that is when I started to uh, see the correlation between Western astrology and even Chinese astrology and psychology. And so after graduating college, I started to work full-time jobs, and astrology came back to me as just a hobby at one point, and then eventually I did get certified. And so I've been certified now three different times, two times by Rebecca Gordon in her astrology school here in New York City. And then I also worked with Natalia Benson, who is based in California. I've also learned from Dara Dubonnet, Aliza Kelly, the Astro Twins, and Colin Bedell. I've been to Norwalk, which allowed me to meet a couple other astrologers, and I am an attendee at the Big Apple Astrology Meetup, which is the largest astrology meetup in the country. And there's a lot of different talented astrologers that come and talk about every month. So I'm always learning astrology. It's whether I'm like reading a book, studying for, a course, taking a course, or just trying to see astrology in everyday things. So always learning, always trying to get the language of astrology to become a little bit more practical and easy to digest for people that don't really know the language of astrology as well as people like us. So, whether you're new to astrology or you're well versed, you're welcome here. And um, this is a place for us to get together, share. Information that we've known with astrology and kind of share it with the group and kind of test things out, ask questions, get clarification on things. I think the biggest issue today in the astrology world is people are able to gain a lot of different information and many different sources. Um, TikTok and Instagram seem to be like some of the easiest ways to learn astrology, but are you actually learning accurate information? That's the question. And so that's why I'm hosting these salons, is because I think it's important for people that are learning to be around somebody that is trusted, that has gone through certification programs to help you actually know what is real and what is not real. Um, so that's the reason behind this. If you do want to learn more about astrology on your own, resources that I think are very helpful and what I used in the beginning of my journey as becoming an astrologer is cafeastrology.com is really great. Astro.com is great as well. And there's a wide variety of books. And so if anybody has any questions about books that I would recommend when you're starting off just learning astrology, I have a bunch of authors that I can recommend. Okay, so let's talk about this full moon in Cancer. So number one, it's a super full moon. So what that means is that the moon's orbit is a little bit closer to Earth, meaning that we humans on Earth will feel the effects of this full moon a little bit more intensely than a regular moon, a regular full moon. Now, it's not as intense as an eclipse, but we are feeling the effects of it a little bit more. And so this is the first lunar event or the lunation of 2026. And 2026 in numerology, which I practice a little bit of numerology, is a 1 or a 10 year, depending on how you look at it, which means it's either an ending or a beginning. So this is the first lunation of 2026, and it's in the dignified sign of the moon, meaning that the moon likes the sign that it's in. The moon is currently in the part of the sky ruled by Cancer, and so the moon likes to be here. This is a homey spot. This is a dignified spot for the moon. So tonight is going to feel intense, not just because it's a super full moon, but it's also because the moon is feeling very at home in this part of the sky. So it is a night to release something. It could be a night to culminate something to come to completion, or it's a night of celebration, or maybe it's all three. It is a night that you can ritualize, you can charge your crystals. If you wanted to charge water, that's fine too, but just be sure to cleanse your crystals before you charge them, because there is probably a lot of stagnant energy that's still there from 2025 that you want to release. So that could be your release ritual, is getting rid of that energy in your crystals from 2025. So what makes a full moon? So a full moon, before I show the chart, is an opposition in the sky. An opposition is an aspect in astrology that equals 180 degrees. So it's just a line. And the line that connects the full moon are the two polar opposite signs. And so this time around, the sun is in Capricorn and the moon is in Cancer. So the sun is at 13 degrees Capricorn and the moon is at 13 degrees Cancer. So people that are joining, just so you realize, I am a Western astrologer. I am also a Placidus astrologer. So Placidus astrologers get everything down to the degree and minute. So you're going to be hearing degrees that are very exact. And that is because it's Placidus that I'm using, the housing system that I'm using. A Western astrologer is somebody that uses the tropical division of the sky, and it's a little bit different than sidereal, which is Indian astrology, tropical astrology, and the division of the sky in tropical or Western astrology is ancient. It's what, you know, people in ancient times used. We're using that same division of the sky that they were using. So it's an ancient division of the sky, where sidereal is actually more up to speed where the constellations are now as Earth has been moving through space, and the constellations have obviously changed because of that. So, what else can we think about before we pull up the chart? And a couple questions I have here is what else is in Cancer or Capricorn? What other planets or celestial bodies are in these two signs? And remember, these are, one's an earth sign, Capricorn, and one's a water sign. So for Cancer, we have Jupiter that is also in Cancer. Jupiter retrograde is in Cancer, and you'll see wherever you are in the world. I'm in New York City, and it's a little cloudy. It was snowing earlier, just a very nice dusting of snow. But I did get to see the moon, and you'll see there is a little dot like underneath the moon, and it looks like a star, but it's actually Jupiter because Jupiter is in the same sign as the moon, so it's going to be really easy to spot. And Jupiter is still retrograde and it's at 21 degrees. Now for Capricorn, we have a cap stack. We have a Capricorn stellium. What a stellium is three or more celestial bodies in the same sign. You can kind of think of them as like wild stallions uh, running through the mountains or through the prairies or through the hills. And there's just this like a powerful energy when we have a stellium. And the stellium that we have in Capricorn is Mercury, Venus, and Mars with the sun. So that's a lot of energy in that particular sign, in that particular part of the sky. So we have a lot of earth energy currently, and then we have a little bit of water energy. And because it is a water moon, Cancer, we want to look at the other fellow water signs, Scorpio and Pisces. And there's nothing in the part of the sky ruled by Scorpio, but Pisces has some current transits, which are the North Node is still in Pisces, Saturn is in Pisces, and Neptune is in Pisces. So we have a Pisces stellium, as like we have a Capricorn stellium. We also want to keep an eye on the cardinal signs, what's happening in the particular cardinal signs of the zodiac. So, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra. And we don't have anything in Libra. We have obviously placements in Cancer and Capricorn, just went over those. And we do have activity in Aries. We have Chiron in Aries, which just went direct this morning after being retrograde. So those are two techniques just to kind of use when you're unpacking a chart is you look at what the sign is that the moon is in, you then classify it by element, and then classify it by mode or modality. And so that's what I did just there. And that's a really good starting point to kind of unpack what is actually happening with lunation. So this is the last lunation with Neptune and Pisces in our lifetimes. So that is a very big deal. That says something. And we will talk a little bit more about that once I finally pull up the chart. Now, because this is a full moon, this means that seeds were planted on the new moon in Cancer this past summer. So if you want to think back to the summer solstice of 2025, for those in the northern hemisphere, in the southern hemisphere, it's going to be opposite. Think back to that time and what were you doing? Well, for me, I was waiting on my judgment of divorce, and it came through um, a couple days after the solstice. And it was kind of around that new moon in Cancer. And so That means that it's been 6 months that I've been divorced, and the seeds that I've been planting are celebrating this new beginning for me. Um, so it's just continuing that celebration. But that's just an example, and you can kind of about it in your life and think, what were you doing? And maybe the seeds that were planted were subconscious. You don't really even know what you were planting, and they're coming to fruition. And um, it's important to kind of just look at your surroundings. What is kind of top of mind? Is there anything spilling over? Is there anything reaching a completion point? And remember, this is a year where it's either an ending or a beginning, or it could be both. And maybe this full moon is going to really make a spotlight on that for you. This full moon, we can also look at it as what is going to be the focus for the next 12 months. Because since this is the beginning lunation of this year. So let's go ahead and pull up the chart and we'll look at it a little bit more intently. So I hope everyone can see it, but this is the super full moon in Cancer. I'm gonna make sure that it looks bigger. Yeah. Doo, doo, doo. Okay, so there is the super full moon in Cancer chart. And it's happening in Eastern Standard Time at 5:30 a.m. tomorrow, January 3rd, 2026. So right now, we are probably about 99% at illumination, meaning that we're 99% to the moon being its full capacity. Once it hits 100%, that means that it is officially full. And that is when the moon has the most potency. So when we're building into a full moon, or any type of transit, which a transit is basically what we're talking about, a full moon, we feel the effects a little bit more so than when we're pulling away from a transit. So that's really where we're at right now. We're in this building phase where we are feeling a little bit of what the moon is giving us this month. And so let's unpack what the moon is giving us this month. So, like I said before, to check that we definitely have the right chart, we're going to look at the moon's degree and minute. So this full moon, we have a 13-degree full moon, 1 minute in the sign of Cancer. The opposite of Cancer is Capricorn. And really, a good way to kind of remember opposite signs is opposite signs, polarities, sister signs, they're always going to be in elements that complement one another. So, for instance, earth and water, those are yin elements. So, all the polarities in earth will be in water and vice versa. So, all the polarities in water will be earth. And the same with fire and air and fire. So that's always a nice thing to use to check. So the opposite of Cancer is definitely going to be an earth sign. There's three earth signs. And another check that you can use is, okay, what is what is the season 6 months from Cancer season? And that is Capricorn season. So the sun is in Capricorn season. And so we look at the sun, which is this circle and dot, and it's 13 degrees 1 minute. It lines up perfectly with the 13 degrees 1 minute of the moon in Cancer. And so that is in opposition, which is what we see here in the chart. It is a red line and it has two circles and one line that connects the two circles. It's a little hard to see because there's a lot of communication going on. There's a lot of oppositions that are happening, and that's kind of what we'll talk about next. So 13 degrees 1 minute where the moon is, and the moon is opposing the sun at 13 degrees 1 minute, but it's also opposing Mars. Mars is not exactly 180 degrees from the moon, but it's 181 degrees. So Mars is at 14 degrees Capricorn, 32 minutes. Then the moon is also opposing Venus at 12 degrees and 14 minutes. So 179 degrees and some change. And then, you know, Mercury is there. It's not as uh, close to the sun. So the orb is a little bit bigger, and an orb basically means the distance away from, you know, the actual planet that is making a true opposition. And so when we look at Mercury versus the sun, and we look at the degrees, Mercury being at 2 degrees, the sun being at 13, that's 11 degrees. And so that's a pretty big orb. And so I really wouldn't even consider that being that close, but I'm going to throw it in there because there is just 10 degrees from Venus and Mercury, and Venus is just 1 degrees from the sun. So sometimes it's just really good to delineate everything that's, in a stellium and kind of look at, okay, well, Venus is pretty close to the sun, therefore it's right by Mercury, so we're going to just throw it in there. So we have four planets opposing the moon. And really it's three planets and one, luminary, which is a luminary is either the sun or the moon. So all the personal planets are opposing the moon. And the personal planets are Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And Mercury is how we communicate with people. This is how we think. Um, this is our memory. Venus is how we receive love or money. So any type of reception, any type of laying back and letting things come to you. And then Mars is how we assert ourselves and go after things. And there's erotica with Mars. So in general, I do feel like this is going to definitely affect life on Earth. Because remember, these are personal planets. So personal planets are going to apply to persons, aka people, aka us. So with this, there could be a little bit of um, like a bigger communication around the full moon, meaning there might be a little bit more of emotion in our communication. Um, there might be a little bit of aggression with our emotion. And the reason why I'm saying aggression with emotion is because the moon does govern our emotion and our emotional body, and Mars is opposing that, and Mars rules our aggression. So um, there could be a little bit of aggression with emotion around this full moon. There could be a little bit of a more of an emotional dialect because the emotions are opposing the way we speak. And look, Mercury is in Capricorn, so it's not in a detriment placement. It was in detriment being in Sagittarius. It just got out of Sagittarius, it just got out of the post-Mercury shadow. but it's a little bit, Mercury is a little bit more buttoned up in Capricorn, therefore, like, less is more. Like, people might be saying less, but with this full moon, we could potentially see people wanting to be a little bit more emotionally uh, open with their conversation. Is that a good thing? It could be. I feel like, in Capricorn season, it is kind of difficult to access our emotions. So this is a point in Capricorn season which allows us to be emotional. And with Venus there, that's a very calming planet. And so it being by the sun and it being by Mercury, in my opinion, the conversations actually could go well, but they could potentially be overly emotional and there could be aggression there. And the reason why I say overly emotional is because we have Jupiter with the moon in Cancer. Jupiter likes to be in Cancer. It's not dignified, but it's exalted, which means it's an extinguished guest. But anything that Jupiter touches, it does expand. So that's why it's important to just realize, less is more. If you're starting to feel like maybe conversations are getting a little too emotional or a little too aggressive, there's nothing wrong with taking a time out. And so use this technique, use this recommendation from now until Monday, which is Moon Day. I say Monday because the moon wades in a particular sign for about 2.5 days. So when we are working with a full moon, we give it about 2.5 days before 100% illumination and 2.5 days after. So that's around Monday for us. Okay. So we talked a lot about Capricorn and Cancer. Let's also talk about that Pisces stellium. And I'm going to go ahead and take a drink really quickly and just check the time. So we're at 8:28. Okay, so we're on time. So the moon and the sun are making contact to the node that's in Pisces. The node is a mathematical point in the sky. It is not a planet, it's not a luminary, it's a mathematical point. And it's connected to the elliptic orbits of the sun and the moon. So when the node is in a particular sign, that is when there's eclipses, and that's where they are. So they've been in the signs of Pisces and Virgo for honestly since September of 2024, but the node went into the node went into Pisces and Virgo on January 11th of 2025. And it will be in those two signs until the spring summer of 2026. So what's happening is because the node's at 10 degrees Pisces, it is actually making direct communication to the moon. It's about 3 degrees off being an exact trine, and that's another aspect in astrology and it equals to 120 degrees. The difference between an opposition and a trine, an opposition is a stare off in the sky. It's polar opposites looking at each other, and it's clear that maybe they don't have a lot in common, but there needs to be integration. So that's what's happening with the opposition. A trine is two celestial bodies talking to each other that do have something in common. The node in Pisces and the moon in Cancer, they're both water signs. And water signs are the most intuitive signs of the zodiac. Therefore, intuition could be supported. And I use could because sometimes with trines, there is a little bit of lazy energy because it's almost as if these planets take their similarity and their commonality for granted, and that sometimes they don't take advantage of it. So this is a push from me to you to take advantage of this intuitive time where the sun is trining the node. And the node is basically telling us what to do. It's it's really our North Star right now. And the North Star is saying, let go and let God. Trust that something grander at play is always at play. Let go to grow. And like if nothing is really happening for you right now, the mantra, my time will come. Pisces is very good at understanding that there is something greater than us. There is a great spirit. There's source energy. There's a higher power. There's God. And the moon in Cancer, it's really good at tuning into the emotional body. How can I nurture myself? How can I take care of myself? Um, Also, the moon in Cancer is very good about connecting with ancestry, the bloodline, about the people that have come before us. Now, with the opposition of the Capricorn energy and Cancer energy, Cancer, like Capricorn, they're natural leaders. Cancer leads us into our emotion, Capricorn leads us into opportunity. Can we have emotion with opportunity? Can we have opportunity with emotion? That is not me to answer for you. That's for you to decide on your own. But yes, in my opinion, we can have opportunity with emotion, but it's about seesaw and balancing that seesaw. I think we need to have time for both. What happens with Capricorn is Capricorn sometimes does not feel like emotion is necessary. So they push it down because they're trying to continue to climb the mountain or climb the ladder. They don't feel like they have time for emotion. And I speak on this in a podcast episode that just released yesterday. So if you're interested in learning more about just January and what it has to bring in Capricorn season, then go on to my podcast. It's Ruby Jade Airways, and I dropped the first episode of 2026 where I go over January, February, and March and the astrological occurrences that will be going on in each of these months. Now, with Cancer, Cancer is always feeling things. It's the first water sign of the zodiac, and it does lead us into the emotional body and the emotional world. And emotions do color our world, and without emotions, our world would be grayscale. I talk about that all the time, and it's a very brave act what Cancer is doing, but at times it can get carried away with emotions. Not everything needs to be so not everything needs to be taken so personally, and not everything, not we don't necessarily need to be so sensitive to everything because not everything is about us. So those are the things that happen, and we can like just kind of rattling those off. It is different energy, and so basically what's happening right now is all this energy and all these planets in Capricorn and all this energy in Cancer, they have to learn to integrate and to kind of make everything a whole. That's what an opposition's um, supposed to do. Now, with the sun and the node, there is also a new aspect that we haven't talked about. It's called a sextile. A sextile is different than a trine, but it's 60 degrees and it is supportive. It's a blue line. It has that star where a trine is a triangle. And this to me, and a lot of astrologers do say this is one of the nicest aspects in astrology. It's a little bit more of like a type of support where it doesn't just slip through your fingers like a trine could possibly happen. This is like you had to have a little bit of elbow grease to get this, but once you do get it, and you kind of put that elbow grease in, it works really nicely. So the sun is trining the north node. And so, this is a season, Capricorn season, to get stuff done, to get shit done. Capricorn has zero time for bullshit. And so if you don't really feel like you want to socialize or you want to put your head down and work, it is a great time to do that, to get things done. That's why, we start the new year always in Capricorn. It doesn't surprise me that that's how the Gregorian calendar falls, because at the beginning of the year, we're setting expectations, we're setting intentions, resolutions. We are planning for the year ahead. And so as you make your intention for the year, the North Node is kind of asking you to be a little bit more spiritual than you normally would be. Um, putting a little bit more of spirit behind your resolutions this year. That's kind of what the North Node is saying. Now, we do have Saturn in Pisces. It retrograded back into Pisces. And so those with a natal Saturn in Pisces, they're going through their last hurrah of their Saturn return. And so Saturn is there, and look, it's Capricorn season. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So that workhorse energy is in the air. And it's pretty far away from the sun and moon, but it's, with the North Node. So another indication of kind of getting things done, but doing it with spirit. Um, so The Artist's Way is like a wonderful book about how letting spirit guide your day. And so I guess for the people that are working right now and listening, um, allow like spirit to come through, because we are in the northern hemisphere and it is a dark time. And so I think that a lot of people get hung up on the fact that there's less light. And so a lot of people fall into the depression of, just less light, seasonal depression or winter depression, whatever you want to call it. Okay, well, if that does happen for you, then maybe allow spirit to guide your day or night to kind of make you feel less alone. And with Neptune also being by Saturn and it being in Pisces, which when Neptune is in Pisces, it's dignified, just like when the moon is in Cancer, does its best work. We've been very, very lucky with this transit, and this transit has been with us for 14 years, but it's wrapping up its time in Pisces, and it will end its transit in Pisces in the month of January. So take advantage of this time. This is a spiritual time. The winter in general, I think, is a very spiritual season because it requires us to be a little bit more insular, to be by ourselves, to not reach as much, like to not distract ourselves as much, to rest, to say no, to take things off our plate, to carve out time to connect with our spiritual body. And with Neptune being in Pisces, it really helps. So, Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. That's kind of why you've seen the rise of yoga. You've seen the rise of people talking about, hypnotherapy or uh, EMDR and other modalities that help soothe the subconscious mind. Sound baths have been huge during this 14-year period. And it's really been cool to be an astrologer during this time because so many people are more open to this work than they were prior to it, I bet. Um, I have been around since 1991, and I remember uh, in middle school, people did like astrology, like me and some of my friends, but it was just a few of us that liked it. And then nowadays, it's very mainstream. Like people know their charts, people know their big three. And I would accredit that to Pisces being in, or sorry, Neptune being in Pisces. So outside of the Pisces stellium, we have one other planet that I would like to talk about that is affecting this lunation, and it is in a square. And squares in astrology are some of the hardest aspects. It's a 90-degree aspect, and that is a character building aspect. And we got Jupiter and Chiron squaring each other in cardinal signs. Chiron being in Aries, which just went direct earlier this morning, and Jupiter being in Cancer. So Aries is all about me. Aries also is a cardinal sign, so it leads us into life. And remember, Cancer is the Care Bearer of the zodiac, and it leads us into emotions. So Chiron being in Aries, Chiron is the wounded healer in astrology. It's an asteroid. And when it's in Aries, there could be this wound around being by yourself. It could be a wound about finding agency in your life. There could be a wound about being confident. These are all things that Aries are really good at. But when Chiron is in a sign, it's typically the sign that it's in somewhere in the spirit, in the soul, in the body, these three things know what to do. They know how to be very masterful of the sign, but there is a wound there. So it's hard for this person to access the strong suits of the sign. So that's why I say there's maybe a wound around confidence or being by yourself or having, agency or kind of just assertiveness of knowing what to do because Aries is really good at being by itself, being singular, being confident, and knowing what to do, not considering other people's opinions. And so when Chiron is retrograde, there could be an opportunity where we do remember, what this sign is very good at. Or it could be the opposite. It just kind of depends what is happening in your particular chart. But since it's going direct, maybe we're having trouble, we might have trouble like with that wound again. It's squaring Jupiter, okay. So maybe what's happening with that is we're not even realizing that, okay, there's a planet that is communicating to this asteroid that kind of exposes a wound. This planet and this asteroid are kind of moving in a formation where they're in each other's blind spots. And Jupiter, like I said earlier, it whenever it touches something, it kind of expands it. And maybe the wound could be expanded a little bit on this full moon. So we just need to be aware of that. Um, the good thing is when Jupiter is in Cancer, there is this, um, I like to say Jupiter sprinkles pixie dust, and it being in Cancer, we have a little bit of like the support here. So there could be an opportunity to, there could be like some type of like breakthrough with the wound as well. Um, the cup of Jupiter can really hold things. That's why the symbol for Jupiter is a chalice and it's up. So maybe we have the capacity to really hold what this wound really needs. The the antiseptic that it really needs, the cup of Jupiter can really hold it. So outside of these interpretations, this moon is going to be powerful. It's going to be emotional, but I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that's actually a really healthy thing to have in the middle of Capricorn season, which is a sign that really doesn't like emotion. This is the last full moon with Neptune being in Pisces, a highly spiritual time. Winter in general is a spiritual season. It's important for you to find spirit in your days because the days are shorter, the nights are longer. there's a possibility that, there could be a little bit of depressive episodes because there's less light. So we need to let spirit guide the way in the dark. Okay, so it's 8:45. I am gonna go ahead and end this salon a little bit early, but we are going to be meeting in the future, and all those dates are listed on Eventbrite. And this is a donation-based salon, meaning that it's free to sign up. Anybody can sign up. The suggested donation is $15 per person, but give what you can give what you can. You don't necessarily need to give that, but that would be the recommended amount. Um, and yeah, so the next one that we will be having and when we will meet up, it will be the new moon in Capricorn. And the new moon in Capricorn is pretty big in 2026 because we actually haven't had a new moon in Capricorn since December of 2024. So in 2025, we kind of missed out on that opportunity. And yeah, so it's a good one to manifest with. And we want to get the manifesting in before we have eclipse season, which an eclipse season is down the pipeline. It's going to actually begin a month from that new moon in Capricorn. And so it's important for us to kind of use these windows of manifestation while we have them because in eclipse season we do not manifest. So, I also am hosting grief circles, coaching calls, and a Saturn return mastermind. So anybody that's listening that has a Saturn in Aries, you will be going through a Saturn return. And I really enjoyed my Saturn return, and so it's a feared milestone, and I would love for anybody that is in that particular cohort to come to learn about it, to not fear it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, and I will see you all in the next new wave of witches for the new moon in Capricorn, and we will be meeting on Thursday, January 15th. So 3 days ahead of the actual event. All right, see you then.